All right, let's get right into it. In the tech world, some rivalries just feel like they're set in stone. But this week, the entire script got flipped. A blockbuster deal just sent massive shockwaves through the market. We are talking about two absolute giants, Nvidia and Intel, and how this new partnership changes everything for one of them. Well, almost everything. That's right. I mean, for decades, these two have been going at it, fierce competitors in the chip world. So you can imagine the surprise when they announced they weren't just cooperating, but forming a really deep partnership. And look, this isn't some minor handshake deal. This is a strategic alliance, and it has huge implications for the entire industry. And the market? It reacted immediately. In just one day, a single day after the announcement, Intel's value on the stock market jumped by a staggering $28 billion. I mean, that number alone tells you a story of renewed hope. It shows that investors believe this deal is a total game changer for Intel, a company that, let's be honest, has been struggling. But is that optimism justified? Let's break down what's really going on here. So it really breaks down into three key parts. First, you've got Nvidia putting its money where its mouth is, buying $5 billion worth of Intel stock. That is a massive vote of confidence. Then, they're teaming up on the products themselves, working together on new chips for both PCs and, maybe even more importantly, for data centers. The whole thing is designed to help Intel fight on multiple fronts. In fact, when you look at it, this partnership is kind of like a masterstroke for Intel. It seems to instantly solve four of its biggest, most nagging problems. For a company that's really been on its back foot for a while, this is a huge step in the right direction. So here's the breakdown. We're talking a huge injection of cash, a powerful stamp of approval from the industry leader, a plan to build a much better PC chip, and a desperately needed way back into the super lucrative data center business. Let's tackle these one by one. First up, the cash. You see, Intel has these incredibly ambitious and wildly expensive plans to build new factories, or fabs, to catch up with its rivals. But those plans need money, a lot of money, and the company was actually forced to delay some construction. This $5 billion check from Nvidia, that's immediate fuel to get those critical projects back on track. Second, and this might be even more important than the money, is confidence. This isn't just about Nvidia. Intel has also recently gotten billions from the US government through the CHIPS Act and from Japan's SoftBank. The message this sends to the market is crystal clear. With friends this powerful, Intel basically has a safety net. It's now seen as too big and too strategically important to be allowed to fail. The third problem this solves is on the actual product shelf. By combining Intel's brains, its CPU, with Nvidia's world-class graphics muscle, its GPU, they can create a much more powerful and competitive PC chip. This is a huge deal for two of the hottest markets out there right now, high-end gaming and on-device AI. And finally, this deal gets Intel back into the data center game. You have to remember, for years, Intel CPUs were the heart of pretty much every server. But then AI exploded, and Nvidia's GPUs became the dominant force. And what's worse, Nvidia started making its own CPUs, basically kicking Intel out of the picture entirely. This partnership completely reverses that, creating a joint design that puts Intel's chips right back in the center of the AI server world. So, everything's looking great, right? Four massive problems solved, the stock is flying high, the future seems bright. But here's the question we absolutely have to ask. Does this blockbuster deal actually solve the one single fundamental issue that's at the very core of all of Intel's struggles? And that, of course, brings us to the elephant in the room. Because despite all this good news, all this positive momentum from the Nvidia deal, there is one giant problem that remains completely untouched. And that problem is Intel's foundry business. This was supposed to be Intel's grand comeback strategy, this moonshot program to start manufacturing advanced chips for other companies, just like its biggest rival does. The only problem, 4 years into this big plan, it's been a total bust. It just hasn't managed to land any major customers. Now, just so we're all on the same page, what is a foundry? Well, think of it like a factory for hire that builds microchips. Companies like Apple or even Nvidia, they design their own amazing chips, but they don't actually build them. They send those blueprints to a foundry, which has the incredibly complex and expensive tech to actually make them. And to really get why this is such a huge challenge, you just have to look at the competition. The undisputed king of the foundry business is Taiwan Semiconductor, or TSMC. They're the trusted manufacturer for literally everyone. Apple, Nvidia, you name it. Intel, on the other hand, still doesn't have a single major outside customer, and its basic manufacturing technology has fallen behind. It's a massive gap. So this brings us to the real question, right? Is Nvidia, this new partner, going to be the first big customer for Intel's foundry? Well, when Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang was asked that exact question, he didn't really commit. Instead, he took the moment to praise his current partner, calling TSMC's manufacturing magic. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement for Intel, is it? And Wall Street analysts are starting to pick up on this. Jordan Klein over at Mizuho put it pretty bluntly, saying that while the stock is getting a short-term boost, this deal isn't some fundamental re-rating of the company. In other words, the core problem, that manufacturing gap, it's still there. That $28 billion jump might just be more about hype than reality. So where does all this leave Intel? The company is in this really fascinating but also really complicated position. On the one hand, it's definitely stronger than it's been in years, but on the other hand, its biggest hurdle is still right there in front of it. So let's just boil it all down. The good news? The Nvidia partnership is a clear win. It brings in cash, a ton of market confidence, and a path to better products. But, and this is a huge but, it does not solve the foundry problem. Nvidia has not promised to be a customer, and Intel is still playing catch-up to TSMC in the most important race of all, manufacturing. Which really leaves us with this one final thought. Intel has these powerful new allies who are not going to let it fail. But there's a big difference between just surviving and actually winning. So the real question now is, can Intel use this new lease on life to finally close that gap? Or is it going to be forever chasing the magic of its rivals? That is the multi-billion-dollar question that this deal, for all its benefits, leaves totally unanswered.